Good morning, sports fans. This is George with Custom Tide Flies and Guide Service. We're going to be doing a tutorial on the CT Rattlin synthetic olive Semper. The hook is a Gamakatsu SL12S in a 6/0. The thread is Danville Flymaster 210 denier olive for the first section and mono for the second section. The tail is fish skull white faux bucktail, H2O Flash-n-Slinky in red, EP's 3D Minnow fibers in Sardinia and olive, H2O's fish scale in olive. The rattle is Hareline medium rattle, and it's encased in small easy body, and there's a tutorial for making this here on this YouTube channel. And the front section is EP Craftfur brush in olive brown, EP Foxy brush in olive brown, and EP streamer brush in red. Now this is what it looks like when it's done. So get your hook mounted. And you're going to get tied in about halfway up the shank. First is the foundation of the tail, and that is the faux bucktail from fish skull. You want a piece about a little better than the thickness of the hook shank. You just want to kind of spread it around the hook as if you would deer hair on a muddler. And the fly is 6.5 inches long, so I've marked on my vise here to the knurl knob where 6.5 inches is. So the next is your H2O red Flash-n-Slinky, and you're going to put this in on both sides of the hook. You're going to trim 1.5 inches off of each. Not a real big clump, about half the diameter of the hook shank. We'll get it. Now, Here comes the first paint. As you go along, there's going to be several times where you're going to put a little head cement on the different pieces, different sections as you go. All right. Next is your darker green EP, and you don't want a big thick clump. You want to be able to see through it. So again, about half the thickness of the shank. You want to be able to see through it. You're going to trim 3 inches off of this. And that goes on top. Kind of spread out a little bit. Next is your scale flash. Not a real big clump. About half of what your EP was. You're going to trim 4 inches off of that. Other paint. I do this for reinforcement. These streamers are being used to chase giant trevally, which are pretty good sized fish. They're pretty tough. Again, with your EP in the darker shade of olive, you want to be able to see through it. Now your Flashabou. I've put a little notch here in my Flashabou card so I'm going to count 8 strands, and I can just put them in that little slot so I can keep track of them. There's 8. You're going to trim 3 inches off of that. And that goes on top. And they're going to want to naturally turn. Just, let them. All right. More cement. And now the Sardinia colored. Got all 3 inches. I want to make sure you can see through it. All right. Now another paint. And your rattle. And you want to give this, you don't have to do a 5 and 3 here. I just, give it a couple turns. Give that a paint. And you're going to let that sit off to the side and cure. Once that's done curing, put that in the vise. And you're going to put your, and it's time to hide the rattle. So, again, we're going to trim a piece that we can see through. This time you're not going to cut 3 inches off of it. You're going to fold it in half. Probably be a good idea to tie in. And it's where you're going to start using your mono. And tippet works for this too. You can use like 4x tippet or 5x tippet. If you got some old tippet, it's recommended that you throw out last year's spools and use this year's spools. Not everybody does that, but you tie that in just like you would if you were going to tie a EP peanut butter. Take this and fold it over the top. You want to make sure you get it spread out. There you go. That way you can hide your rattle. Okay. Next, you got your EP craft brush is what you're going to use next. So you're going to start that right here where the rattle starts, right on top. Get yourself tied in. And you're going to take 4 wraps. You're going to want to pull these fibers back and pinch them. So that they fold back on their own. And just hold them back. Give it a turn. It's 1, 2, 3. Now you don't want these touching. 4. Yeah, these are not touching wraps. They are spaced about 1/8 of an inch apart or so. And that is to make room for the thickness of the brush at the bottom where it meets the hook. Take your wire brush and just brush those fibers back. A little shot of cement here. And the same thing with your Foxy brush. These Foxy brushes and Craftfur brushes are 3-inch width. Run that all the way up. There you go. And this piece of wire here can go. And then again, 4 turns. There's 1. And you're gonna, I forgot to do that. You need to pinch these fibers back so that they stay out of the way. Just rake them back with your fingers and give them a crimp. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so get that lashed on. Give that a couple of turns, and then take your brush, your wire brush, brush it back. And another shot of cement. Now, this red streamer brush, you're going to have to trim down because it comes as 2.5 inches across, but you don't want it. You don't want 1.25 inches back the fly, because it'll just cover all this up. That's not what you want. You want a collar on the front of it. So you got to trim 1/2 inch. Or so, a little less, off of each side, so it's more like 3/4 inch. And then get that tied in right where the last one stopped. Crimp your fibers back. And you don't necessarily want these touching yet. You will here in a second once you get up to the eye. You're going to do a couple of touching wraps once you get up to the eye. Like here. And then just lash that down. Make sure that piece of wire is bent down flat so that you can cover that. Then do a 5 3 whip. Working with this mono, it's better to do a 5 3 whip because mono is slippery. Then I take a marker and color that mono black. You could color it, you know, red or olive or whatever. I just color it black. And then take your UV resin and seal that. Hit it with a light O. Take your wire brush, brush those fibers back. And there you have it. CT's Rattlin synthetic olive Semper. I hope you got something out of this tutorial. Uh, this is George with Custom Tied Flies and Guide Service. Please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can find other stuff on my showcase website at www.custom-tied.com. That's custom-tied.com. Have a splash, don't forget the dash. Happy tying!